What's going on, everyone? I'm Magically Average. That is Frankfurtter. This is BakaBites, and today we are talking about anime coming to Warner Brothers? Question mark?
Wowie zowie.
Yeah, big news from Warner Brothers after a string of shit news from them, especially with the demolishing of Rooster Teeth and the leaving of a couple of their higher ups due to some shit happening with the DOJ, I think. It's not good stuff for the Warner Brothers right now, but they did announce recently that they are aiming to produce 10 anime a year moving forward. That's right. The studio that brought you some amazing stuff that you probably never even realized, like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Record of Ragnarok, even Spy Family, are planning to put out more anime each year. This is, well, one, it was a surprise to me because I didn't even realize that Warner Bros. Actually owned and or produced the anime that I mentioned until I read the article. But they actually have a studio in Japan that they work with to produce some of the anime. And the two big ones actually of record for them are JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Record of Ragnarok. They also, I believe, produced Spy Family, Food Wars, and one other one too, I think. I can't remember. I think they helped to produce... No, not Attack on Titan.
No, I think the whole sorry, you were saying I kind of zoned out because I'm fact checking this whole JoJo's Bizarre Adventure shenaniganry. Because I don't believe that for a moment. Because Studio Brian is
Studio Brian was the one that animated
David
it.
Production. David Production is the one that animates it. Let's see here. Hold on, because this all screams like what sort of hooey fooey nonsense is going on. The only thing I can find for the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure TV anime series, whatever you want to call it, that has Warner Brothers attached to it in the slightest, is that the series is distributed in North America by Warner Brothers.
There you go. There you go.
Disney
So they're just trying to weasel their way into it, is what they're saying.
So they're really just like, hey, we do JoJo's. It's like, no, you distribute it. You don't produce it. You don't do squat to it. You just
It's so hard to being in the United States to keep track of everything, because like for most everything, like whatever, however it's produced in Japan and distributed in Japan is very easy to follow. And then here it's like you have to figure out who's producing it, and then who's distributing it, and then who's their US partnered to distribute it, and then who's the streaming service that they're going to distribute it to. So it's like a whole bunch of moving parts and it's chaos. But regardless, Warner Bros. Is diving head deep into the anime pool moving forward. If you're not aware as well, Warner Bros. Is actually producing an upcoming anime this year, I think. The Suicide Squad Isekai.
The articles you have sent me, they've all kind of indicated that they're in the finishing touches for the Suicide Squad Isekai, which honestly I have a little hope for. I'm thinking that it might be okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be as bad as people, deemed it to be from the one trailer that I've seen. I actually was pretty impressed, and again, that could just be Studio Wit talking, rather than the rest of the story being done by Warner Brothers and being absolute dog water.
Yeah.
So that one will. I mean, we won't have to wait long. I have a feeling it probably will come out either summer or fall, if I had to guess. If they're saying finishing touches,
I'm gonna guess fall, given the timeline right now, but we'll see. The thing that I was always sort of hesitant on when it comes to the Suicide Squad anime is that they market it as Suicides, or it's titled Suicide Squad Isekai, which is odd given that it's the DC universe is like a well-established universe that Warner Brothers owns. So it's like, are they taking an outside entity to bring them into the DC universe? Are they going to just have everything take place into the DC universe? They're just calling it an isekai because it's anime. Like, I wonder what kind of spin they're going to put on it there. But that is but one of many that they're planning to produce. I can't remember the gentleman who was the one that was talking through most of the article, but they had made a quote that kind of took me by surprise. They had a quote, I should say, that took me by surprise, and that they were saying how, a lot of anime that is produced today has like an IP origination. Basically, they're just fancy pants way of saying there's source material behind it.
So yeah, I see the quote in front of me, and I can read it for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's Japanese anime that comes from original IP, but there's also anime that comes from elsewhere. And we've looked at our DC universe and said, can we take these characters and reinvent them in the world or world of anime? Which is not straightforward because you have to do it the right way. You have to work with the right studios to make it happen and build your fan base. Basically, they're saying, how can we take these IPs that we have, basically from DC Universe? So we have our first one with the Suicide Squad, which is a bold move, Cotton. We'll see if that pays off. But then you think, okay, what else in the DC Universe can we turn into an anime, but also make it feel like, how do we appeal to the Japanese audience and like also appeal to a Western audience? Because we have these fans who will literally crucify you if you fuck up their favorite superhero or supervillain.
Well,
And then you're just like, okay, but how do we get another audience in with that?
you brought up so many points I wanted to talk about. So I'm gonna start from.
Let's dissect it. Then.
I'm gonna start from just the quote. So the thing that struck me the most from the quote is that the person, and you'll have to give me their name because I can't remember off the top of my head who was in most of the article. The fact that they said like they're gonna take like the established DC characters and stories that they have and try to use them as a base for creating an anime is intriguing and somewhat terrifying, because part of me is like, you know what, it would be really cool to see them make new stories using like a Japanese studio and try to develop like a new twist on something, rather than take like we want to reinvent the Justice League but just as an anime. It's like, that's not, you're just putting a different polish on it. It's not something new, it's just got a new shine.
Right.
I would be more interested if they're like, we're gonna create an entirely new Justice League storyline, or even just the superheroes in particular, like Superman or Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, like any of them. Like I would actually find that really interesting if they were able to make it enticing by having both new animation in that it'd be done by a Japanese studio, it'd be more anime quality, coupled with an entirely new original story.
Right.
Because like part of me has this fear. That's the intrigue part. The fear and the terrifying like piece to it is that I can easily picture a situation in which we're just going to get like the retelling of Teen Titans, but as an anime. I'm not going to be mad about it.
Like, yeah, but at the same time, like, if you look at Teen Titans, not the new Teen Titans, but the ones that we
the original Teen Titans,
it is very heavily inspired by anime. It's kind of similar to like the Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like those two series worked very well because they were directed towards the Western audience, but they were heavily inspired elsewhere. And so, are you looking for more so something like that, or are you looking more so something that is actual anime that can kind of swing both ways for both audiences?
I am looking for just anything that is going to be new, not just like animation style. I would want to see them redo the Teen Titans only if they're going to either create a new storyline or continue on from where they ended the series, for the Western audience or what have you. Like, I don't want them to do a reimagined Teen Titans in an anime style, but it's the same exact episodes that we've seen before, right? Or like the Justice League, but again, it's flashy and shiny because it's anime now. It's not the regular Western style cartoons that we're used to.
Right.
But that's where my fear comes in, is that I am not sure Warner Brothers has the wherewithal or even like the rights based on, because I don't know what their rights are with DC, like how far they can extend, how much new material they can create. If
I'm not mistaken, they own DC.
They own DC, right? But I don't know if it's a limitation on like what they can do within the DC universe. Like, can they create new
I get you.
spin-offs, right? You know what I mean? So that
I mean, I'm sure they can, for the fact that let's take a even further step back and look at the two things that I can only find that they've actually produced
okay.
that is
Okay.
anime related. And that is Record of Ragnarok,
Yep.
which I watched season 1 and it's awful. I thought it was
But
like, even for like turning your brain off and like not really paying attention, it's still pretty fucking bad. And
and
especially if you do not like tournament arcs, you're gonna fucking hate it.
and that has a
Because
manga
the whole
though too,
thing.
right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But yeah, Record of Ragnarok, I thought it was awful. And then they have I mean, interestingly enough, you were saying you want an original story based off these characters, yada yada. They do. They already have one. They already have a movie, not a series, but a movie. They have the Batman Ninja movie, which is an anime movie.
Oh, that's
It was
right.
which was done by Studio Kamikaze Douga.
Okay, yeah. Hmm.
Which, if you don't know who they are or what they work with, they're in charge of the new adaptation of Sandland and also Pop Team Epic. So
Yep.
those are their two big notable ones. They've done other things for like video games, etc. So they haven't been I mean, say what you will, they haven't been the greatest studio, but I mean, they still put out an original anime movie around Batman.
Yeah.
And the audience doesn't seem to like it. 60 on Metacritic, or sorry, 60 on Rotten Tomatoes for the audience, low sixes on Mal. But I mean, the critics, the 17 critics who watched Batman Ninja, thought it was good. It was an 82 for that on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, my hope is that they'll take a look at some of the other series that had a reimagining in an anime in anime quality, or however you want to phrase it, like as an anime, and
Right.
and go from there. Like the one that comes to mind off the top of my head is the Star Wars anime that came out, where it was all different Star Wars
Oh, Star
like
Wars Vision.
stories. Yep, Star Wars Visions. They were all different Star Wars stories, all done by different studios too, except I think 2 episodes were done by the same studio, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right for season 1. I haven't watched season 2.
Yeah. But that is a really good example of taking an existing IP, something that is well established, has a library of content to it, and putting a really unique twist on it in terms of storytelling, in terms of like style, everything about it. Like, I love that. I would want that for DC. Like, I would watch something like that if it was done for like a superhero or one of the groups or what have you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, that is my hope. My fear is that they're just gonna be like Teen Titans, but anime. It's like, cool. I would rather watch Teen Titans Go at this point. Like, at least it's new content. At least I haven't seen it. So, the other piece that you had mentioned was the audiences, and I know that the purpose behind Warner Bros. Diving deeper into the anime pool, according to the articles, is that their target audiences for anime that they determined were like between 18 and 30-year-old, but they were kind of noting the fact that it is not just within the Asia Pacific audiences, obviously Japan being the strongest audience for anime, but it's the US, it's a large part of Europe, and then Latin America as well. And so
Right.
it's obvious that they're seeing that, the US huge market in general is not even one of the stronger ones for some of the different areas in which like anime encapsulates. Like, when it comes to manga sales, France is actually the second highest in terms of volume sold. Number 1 being Japan, number 3 being the US. That goes for anime too. Like, a lot of anime is like shown and screened and streamed internationally, which is why like the High Dive news that we had talked about a month and a half, 2 months ago was such devastating news, because it was being pulled from a lot of the European market, which was a concern for streaming rights. So the acknowledgement from Warner Bros. In that anime has a very large, well-established audience that is worldwide. They've identified markets that are just like the amount of anime they're demanding, and the supply of of anime is growing in these markets is consistent over the last couple of years. The hope is that they see that and they invest heavily into the anime into their anime like group, I guess we'll say.
Right.
Because you hear a lot of companies say like, oh, we've seen this market growing, and we're getting in there, we're putting our foot in, we're joining the rush, and we're gonna do all these things, and you get so hyped, and it's just a pure letdown because they do everything wrong, right? Like they don't do research, they're making poor product, they're not marketing it well, this and that. Prime example being like Disney Plus and Hulu when it comes to anime, right? Like we were all excited when Disney Plus was like, yep, we're going to start showing anime. We're going to have a library for anime. It's going to be great. We saw a migration, right? The first big polls were like Dragon Ball Z and Bleach, I think, were like the two big ones that originally emerged over and migrated over to Hulu. And it was a huge sign. The big first anime that was coming out was going to be Summertime Rendering on Hulu. Everyone was pumped. And then it was like jail time for Summertime Rendering, no marketing for other series like Bleach and Undead Unluck. Like it's been crickets for the last year, really, for anime on Hulu. And that's the thing too. Like in the United States, we only get it through Hulu. Like most everywhere else gets it on Disney Plus. So it's like Disney Plus also shit the bed there too.
And it's quite unfortunate. I mean, we kind of crap on Disney Plus and Hulu a lot on this podcast for the fact that their marketing is just awful. But it's like they do, for all intents and purposes, they do get a lot of really good shows. And by a lot, I mean at least 1 to 2 a season. Like, and that's the disappointing part because there are 2 coming out this current season, Go-Go Loser Ranger and The Fable, that both look pretty darn solid. I mean, Go-Go Loser Ranger I already know is going to be great. But the Fable is another one that just I've heard through word of mouth that this is a huge series and it's a big deal, and it's just this show that has so much potential that just falls to the wayside.
Yeah,
and you're not going to hear anything about it.
Yeah, so
and it's frustrating.
The hope from Warner Bros. Though is that they will stay true to their word, invest, market, and try to not only like hop into the anime market, but improve it, grow, improve, like just take steps to making it better and better, and not just be there as a body, right? You want them to show that they can actually produce good anime. You want them to put it on a new streaming service too. They mentioned like Max and HBO Go in the article, as well as like the streaming services that are already like established in certain continents and countries that they're hoping to start opening up more to for like streaming anime. And it's like, yeah, that's exciting. That's good. We're not going to have this monopoly market of primarily Crunchyroll, right? High Dive is still strong, at least in the United States. But again, as I noted, since it's leaving a lot of other countries, it's really just going to be Crunchyroll and Disney Plus and Netflix for the foreseeable future. So the hope is that, maybe we'll see Max get into it. I know many people are probably groaning and being like, oh, another streaming service to join. And yeah, it's got downsides, definitely. But at the end of the day, you'd rather not have it all be in one library and then have that one company go, well, since we have the market now, how's $30 a month sound? Right? So you end up paying the same as having the other streaming services. So that piece to it, I was excited to see in the article as well, that they're at least doing their market research before, diving headfirst into the anime world.
Yeah, and this is all to say, while you were talking this entire time, I've been just furiously Googling and searching and doing a little bit of research on my end. By the way, you had asked for the name as to who was speaking in the quote. James Gibbons, who is Warner Brothers president of Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
Or WBD president of Asia Pacific. And that led me to think, like, okay, like, they claim records of Ragnarok and they claim the Batman Ninja movie. Like, those were the 2 big ones that they worked on. And then I was like, where in the fuck is JoJo's coming from? Because we know that it's not JoJo's.
Yeah.
And I did some digging. And it turns out that Warner Brothers Japan, that's the studio name in Japan, by the way, is just Warner Brothers Japan.
Okay.
It is an animation studio. They do produce a good amount
Mm-hmm.
Like an actual good amount. They have 100, according to Mal. This is just their series that they've worked on. To what capacity? Probably just like an assistant studio, just like, hey, we need like help on this or this. But they have 130 titles under their belt. Like, and some of them are darn solid. Like they do have JoJo's. That is under their belt. They do have Don Machi,
Oh
which
yeah.
I was very surprised about.
Yep.
They also have Tonakawa, the moon, whatever the fly me to the moon. Is
Yeah,
that what
yeah,
it
yeah.
is? I haven't actually seen it.
Yeah.
And then the biggest shock to me was like they helped with Mob Psycho seasons 2 and 3, which are phenomenal. Like they, in my opinion, this is just, hey, we've done a lot of side work. This has worked out for us well enough. We see that the market is actually growing in America, which is where we're based out of, etc. Let's go full hog on 10 episodes, or 10, not 10 episodes, 10 series, whether it be from DC or elsewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and see how we actually do. Is it worth the investment of putting in more effort to actually be the major production on these series?
Well,
And
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see if they do, because as we were talking about on the top of the episode, I suppose, um, you gotta have compelling stories, and if you're gonna use your own IP in the DC universe, who are you gonna use? What are you gonna do? I assume you need to get some sort of blessing from higher ups at DC to just use these characters, or like, hey, here's the storyboards. You know,
yeah,
what do you think, and get their input, let alone have them work on it with you.
yeah. Well, again, and that was kind of what I was hitting on earlier. Is that the it's exciting to hear them say, "Hey, we want to use our own IP to create these new anime series that we're planning," but it's the matter of how they're going to do it and with whom they're going to do it with. I think those are like the key pieces, because if you're gonna go, we have a brand new superhero no one's ever heard of, they're gonna get an entire anime dedicated to them. I don't know who you're gonna capture. You're definitely not gonna really capture the DC audience, because they're gonna be like, okay, I this is
Nerds.
not non-canonical hero that does stuff. Lame. But the anime fans might be like, yeah, sure. But then you have the flip side of, we're gonna do a complete retelling of the original Superman series, but as an anime. You might get the DC
Or based in
fans,
Japan.
or based in Japan. Yeah, you might get the DC fans being like, "All right, yeah, let's go, let's go." Like, basically just a retelling or a reimagination of it. Sure, yeah. And then the anime fans are like, "Why? This is not new. Like, it's not going to get me into superheroes. It's not going to get me into DC." Right? It's a
Yeah.
really interesting position, in that you have an audience that, to many looking from the outside in, would be like, you comic nerds and anime nerds, they're one and one. They're like the same. They got to be on the same page.
One's
And
just
they're
reading a book forwards, the other's reading it backwards.
well, yeah, technically, sure. But no, I mean, like, there's like wildly different just stories that are being told, right?
Yeah.
Like, in terms of, like, between DC and Marvel, like, for superhero stuff, like, a superhero story is wildly different than most manga. Like, you
Yeah.
have your superhero mangas and stories, sure, but like, the worlds in which these superheroes exist and how their stories are told is vastly different from many, like, the storytelling of a manga, or an anime original.
I mean,
So
even to simplify it, it's just like, hey, you have superheroes in manga and comics. Comics, they're based in like the real world. They're based on the United States or in the actual planet Earth. And then you have some other planets that, these aliens come from and they just fuck shit up, whatever.
um
But then you have don't you fucking actually me, mister.
uh,
No, fuck you. But then you have, manga, and you have your superhero stories in manga. Like, well, let's take for instance My Hero Academia. Take all reservations away from My Hero Academia. That world looks completely different. Like, yeah, sure, it may be based in Japan and there, or other countries that get involved later on, but at the same time, it's not based on the Earth that we know. It's not based in reality. It's based on what would happen if 90% of the population or whatever, I forget what the fucking percentage was,
Yeah, whatever it is.
actually had a quirk or a superpower. So it's one of those things that I'm wondering if this would be my ultimate ask, that if I could get my way with anything and everything for DC creating anime, scrap fucking Earth, make a brand new world and just put these characters into it and make an anime about it. Because like, what are you gonna
I
do with Superman? It's like, yeah, he's already an alien that's coming from this planet. And you've got so much based off of
He's
him
coming
that
from
it's just
Krypton.
like, just the people are gonna be like, oh, this isn't right, this isn't right. They're just gonna compare it one for one. Just make it brand
Yeah,
new. Make a brand new world and throw some of these characters in it and give them, differences. Not necessarily like, oh my god, it's not kryptonite that he's allergic to. It's, something else. Like kryptonite's fine, but just like make it make it distinct. Make it
yeah,
so you're not going to be comparing it to what we have already out.
yeah.
Because I mean, looking at this list of just the Justice League alone, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, The Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg. I could not think of a fucking story to tell for any of these except for maybe Cyborg that would be based in anime reality.
Well, and so again, this kind of wraps back into my original thought process, which was I'm intrigued yet terrified to see what they do with it.
Yeah.
Because they can most certainly try to create something new, and they could easily just take what is already in existence and transform it into an anime. Like both are within the realm of possibilities. It's just going to boil down to who are they going to market it to the most? Are they going to try to reel in the DC fans to get them to watch a reimagination or retelling of their favorite superheroes, or are they going to try to capture the hearts of anime fans by kind of doing what they're doing with the Suicide Squad isekai, which is like presumably making something that's new or fresh and original as an anime?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it boils down to.
And at the end of the day, I will tip my hat to them. Like they're trying to get ahead of the curve because
Yeah.
like Marvel hasn't tried to do any of this. Like none of these
Well,
other big studios have really tried to do this.
can I be
I
honest
feel
though?
what?
Marvel doesn't have to. DC is
I mean, have you seen Madame
struggling.
Web?
Well, okay. Sorry, you have one bad
Most of them,
movie.
no. A lot of whatever I hear like a new Marvel property is coming out, I hear nothing but bitching and complaining after it's out now. Like Marvel's quality isn't as good as it used to be. So it's like it's
I-
one of those things. At what point does Marvel look at something like this and being like, maybe we should give this a try because anime is booming in the United States now.
Yeah.
Like
My
it's one of those things of just like it's bold, also bold of DC to just like announce that they're going to do 10 and just be like, we have one
well,
in the oven. We're just going to announce this before that one comes out and before you guys can pick it apart
well,
or enjoy it.
but the other thing to it too is that they all they said was they want to produce 10 anime a year. They didn't specify like it's all going to be DC related. And
This is true.
that was going to be my last point I wanted to bring up, is that I I'm interested to see if Warner Bros is just going to ramp up the production of anime, or if they're going to try to establish a new anime studio, like an actual like animation studio rather than just like a production studio.
Man, I just had a brilliant thought and I scare
I
myself
was I
sometimes.
was like, you were smirking and I thought I said something dumb, but you were just
I have the perfect pitch
oh no.
for Warner Brothers Japan to make an anime and make it good for America.
Oh
You
no.
take the Animaniacs, you make it anime, but you're learning about Japan.
uh, now I'm imagining Yakko or Wacko.
Wacko and Dot just like they are
I
already just like the most zany characters of all time.
Wow.
Just make
did
it
you really
animated
use did you
yes, I
really
did.
use the word zany like what they say in
Yes.
the theme song?
Yes. That was
Good God.
pun not intended, but no, I think that would be a hilarious concept of just like the Animaniacs trying, like going to Japan, or trying to teach
Yeah.
Americans about Japan or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well,
Like I think that would be hilarious.
and again, like I'm interested to see if they're gonna start picking up Japanese IP too. Like if they're gonna take on the reins of being like, yeah, let's pull in a Japanese IP and make it. Why not?
You wanna put your tinfoil hat on and see what and take a guess as to what you think they will take over?
Take
Because
over.
well here, okay, let me get to the point. My little tinfoil hat. I sent you a rumor mill tweet the other day about
Oh
JoJo's
God.
Bizarre Adventure Steel Ball Run changing production companies. And this news coming out, a few days before. Could you picture in a world that Warner Brothers Japan takes over Steel Ball Run from Studio David or David Productions?
So I'm going to go further into the
Oh,
conspiracy theory.
please do, good sir.
This is not turning into a JoJo's episode, although I would love to have an episode
I
dedicated
mean,
just JoJo's.
that might be the subtitle of the episode. Is Warner Brothers producing JoJo's Steel Ball Run?
Oh God. Um, the conspiracy theory that I've heard going around is that David Production has not been very interested, we'll say, or excited to do Steel Ball Run because they have been noted to not want to animate the horses due to the complexity of the animation.
Interesting.
I don't know where I've just seen a number of tweets referencing different sources and like I don't know if it was quotes from the studio about something else or people picking apart like other anime that they've produced that had horses in it and being like they can't do Steel Ball Run. There's like, I can't remember the number. There's something like over 2,000 horses that are entered into the race or something. It's something wild. Like not spoilers, but like a number of them eventually like leave the race. But like
Do they leave alive?
yeah. They just walk
Oh,
away with their heads
no!
sad and they just like I'm
no!
done. But that
No.
is the rumor or conspiracy theory behind David Production as well regarding Steel Ball Run. Here, but okay, my personal thoughts on it though, and what would absolutely break my heart is if Warner Brothers the new initiative, their first big announcement after the Suicide Squad Isekai is to say yes, we are taking the reins, pun intended, and going to be animating and producing Steel Ball Run, and going holy crap, cool. Like first off, finally we get the announcement, right? Like
Yeah.
excellent. I don't want their first like Japanese IP anime to be something I absolutely adore because they're gonna fuck it up to high hell. There's no way the new like reimagined Warner Brothers Japan, the big push to start producing more and more anime each and every year is going to turn something like Steel Ball Run into a masterpiece. It's gonna be bad. There's going to be growing pains, right? The expectation is that there's going to be growing pains. You have to manage, because right now they have noted that they are producing roughly 5 anime a year.
Right.
But again, to your point, it's the level of their involvement with the animation studios, because what we believe to be the case and what I think we've sort of established through the research is that they're on the production side, meaning they're like post animation. They're like the cleanup and the distribution of the anime. They're not like on the animation side or any of the heavy lift that goes into like the actual creation of the anime itself. So the question then becomes, is that their angle now? Are they trying to start an entire production studio in that they animate and produce and publish from start to finish? Or are they just saying we're just ramping up our production of the anime and the partners that we work with in Japan? That's still not really clear, at least from what we've been able to glean from the articles, right? If it's
Right.
the latter, I'm not so worried. Like if it's just a matter of increasing their production, then great. Like, yeah, get your hands in more projects. Start, diving deeper into what of your own IP you can produce, right? See what other studios in Japan are going to fit best for, the style that you're looking for. They've done a lot with like Wit on those projects. Obviously, David production with JoJo's and others too. But like if it's that piece, great. If it's the animation piece, that's just where my worry is. It's like who are you going to pick from? What are you going to kick it off with? I just and my fear is that if their big announcement, they're like, get ready, folks, our first big one, Steel Ball Run. My heart will sink into my stomach.
So, real quick for clarity, on past things that we've said this episode,
Yeah.
they've already tentatively said when the Suicide Squad Isekai will release.
Oh,
The following paragraph underneath what we were talking about before. The studio is putting the finishing touches on the Suicide Squad Isekai, a new original anime based on yada yada yada, done by Wit, directed by Osada Eri, from the screenplay by Nagatsuki Tape. I don't know. The series will release in Japan in July, with entry into international markets to follow at an unconfirmed date closer to the year end. So now the question is, will we get this the same time as Japan as like a subtitled version on Crunchyroll or whatever streaming site, or are we just not gonna like Japan's gonna have this in July and then we are gonna get this like Christmas time?
Yeah. What? So, okay, so hang on. So it's going to be airing in Japan in July.
The series will release in Japan in July with entry
International.
into international markets to follow at an unconfirmed date closer to the end of year or to the year end.
So my suspicion there would be that they're looking to put it on a different streaming service.
Does Warner Brothers have streaming service? I guess Hulu.
Is it
Because
Hulu?
you gotta think Animaniacs came out on Hulu. They did a big deal and
Oh yeah.
made multiple
Well,
jokes about Hulu and the
yeah,
Animaniacs reboot.
but doesn't 21st Century Fox and all those other ones have stuff on Hulu as well? Like isn't
Sure.
21st Century Fox like Family Guy and Bob's Burgers and Futurama and stuff?
Yeah, maybe it's just all piecemealed out and they just don't have their own.
Well,
Although
because
Warner Brothers Discovery is Discovering Max now or HBO?
yeah, well, see that's what I was going to mention. In the article, they mention Max and they mention HBO Go. Max already has a pretty large library of anime, specifically movies, right?
Yeah, specifically Studio Ghibli movies.
Well, I mean, not even that. Like my wife and I were just watching Weathering with You, and then we
That's
noticed that there's a number of other ones like Belle. We watched I think The Girl Who Leapt Through Time is also on Max. Like there's
So it sounds like all of Hosoda's movies are on Max as well.
yeah. So I think though, if I'm correct in this, I don't think Max has like they don't produce episodes as they air on TV. Because like Hulu, when something airs on like national TV, like on for U.S. audiences like Fox or CBS or whatever, if they're a Hulu license as well, they come out like the following day or whatever. I don't think Max has something like that because Max they do. They
So
do air.
Ninja Kamui is a weekly series. Episode 8 just came out last week or whenever.
And it is. Oh, that's right. That's on Max. Oh,
That's on
conspiracy
Max.
theories increase. You're going to see Max start to get more and more licenses. Watch
I mean,
out.
if Warner Brothers has anything to say with it, yeah, they could be the next big player in the streaming
Yeah.
service when it comes to anime.
What?
I mean, you have to think that like Hulu Disney is trying to break through, but their marketing is absolute fucking shit about it. So
Yeah.
you have to think if Max or HBO or whoever just does the minimalist of marketing for
Oh, yeah.
this,
Oh, yeah.
they can take that market share and be
Easily.
like, "Hey, we got the isekai or the Suicide Squad isekai coming out. We also have these great titles, including these great movies from these great studios, etc."
Yeah.
I can definitely see them starting to do a little bit more marketing that way, but then it becomes, are they going to be in the same foot race as Disney just was, in which worldwide streaming server rights, are they going to try and buy up other, licenses for different streaming shows?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting to see this sort of a commentary on all of streaming right now, in that every streaming service seems to be have like creating their own licenses in terms of like shows and movies that are coming out. Like Netflix has a crap ton of their own, Hulu, Apple TV Plus, like all of these streaming services have like their own exclusive series. And for anime, there's really not a home for that, because we don't have like a outside of Crunchyroll and High Dive, we don't have ones that are like producing their actual like their own series. They're all just built for purchasing the licenses and streaming them. So
Yeah.
it's not surprising from that regard that like a Netflix, a Hulu, aren't really marketing, because it's not, they're just something that they license to stream. It's not like they're producing it. It's not like they're the ones that are owning the rights and the license to it, right? So it'll be interesting to see someone like Max that is, or HBO Go, whichever one that Warner Brothers I guess would be able to put this on, if their original series, if their DC series, if they're going to be like heavily marketed, and maybe that sort of kind of kickstarts everything for Warner Brothers in terms of the new anime coming out, whether it's original productions of the for their existing IP or IP from Japan that they're going to start producing as well. That piece is also intriguing to see.
Yeah.
It's a really weird time for anime in terms of streaming outside of the US, cuz mind you, like being in Japan, it's not so much of a concern, right? It's like, do you watch it on, the TV Tokyo, or do you watch it on one of the other channels that it comes out on? Like, and then after the fact, there's different streaming services that are Asia Pacific exclusive that they use for watching anime after the fact, right? Here in the United States and elsewhere, it's a lot harder to track down everything. Like, shows are moving left and right. You're trying to figure out where things are airing when they're coming out. And you're starting to find out that more and more streaming services are getting rights and licenses. And you're like, all right, well, add it to the monthly bill of something else I got to pay for to watch my favorite shows. So it's just a really interesting time. And this announcement as well is I think going to really shake up how anime is going to be streamed in the US.
Yeah.
If they stay true to the 10 a year, and if they really do a heavy push forward, dedicate the time, dedicate the money, dedicate the resources to make good quality anime, it could be pretty impactful.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, more competition is better than less competition, so I'm looking forward to it. It's just, in my book, is a Western studio. In all intents and purposes, we're just going to consider Warner Brothers a Western studio because it is.
Yeah.
Can a Western studio finally market correctly anime to the Western audience? Because you, as we've talked about, you have Crunchyroll and High Dive. People know about them. They'll go to them for those anime specifics. But then you have Disney who's fucking up, even though they've got distribution rights out the wazoo for a shit ton of series.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Netflix who's just in their own little bubble that's like, yeah, we have it. Here you go. Take it. We're not really going to advertise it,
Yeah,
but
they
we'll
just
put it on your homepage for about a day or two.
yeah.
And it's just, if you can get Max in here, because they have gotten rid of HBO Go in the United States. It's just in different territories. Because I'm reading further and further into this article as we go. HBO Go is still operational in other countries, but they are replacing it with Max in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah,
In the near future, not even the future, the near future.
Yeah, I think Max is coming out to 20 countries in Europe on like May
In May.
21st. Yeah, like
Yep.
they've already scheduled it.
Yeah,
So
that's the last paragraph. Is speaking this week with the this week at Series Mania in France. WD's JB Pere I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Sorry. This week announced that Max will launch in 20 European countries on May 21st in time for the Summer Olympic Games.
Yeah.
So
So I mean,
yeah,
that's huge.
you just gotta wonder if like a Western studio can finally advertise correctly and dish out the correct response to snatching up all these different anime IPs. Because
Hmm.
yeah, I didn't realize that Hosoda's library is on Max. He's one of my favorite directors. Between Hosoda and the Ghibli movies, like I think Hosoda probably puts out better anime movies than anybody else right now.
Yeah.
If not, between him and Shinkai is the biggest toss up at this point.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's. I wish there was marketing for that, but
Yeah.
again, it's one of those things that they pulled a Disney. No marketing for it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Give
I,
us a little bit of marketing, whether it even be online. Just put it online, like in a banner somewhere.
yeah.
Like you go to websites like IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic, OpenCritic, whatever, what have you, and you just don't see anything for it. You just see, King Kong versus Godzilla with and King Kong's got his robotic arm. And you're like, I guess, sure, we'll
Yeah.
go see
Yeah.
it. Like I already knew it because I've seen 15 trailers on YouTube. Like, buy a banner space online, something. Just give us a little bit of marketing that like shows like, hey, you give a shit.
Yeah. The last piece
So
I wanted to bring up is that my real hope at the end of the day for the initiative from Warner Brothers is that, albeit they're going to be working in tandem with their Japanese studio and their partner in Japan, I do really hope that this opens up opportunities domestically for other you know job opportunities beyond just the production side, right? Like if they get into the animation side, if they get into like voice acting or anything, right? If
yeah,
that opens up avenues domestically for whether it be studios or individuals who join Warner Brothers, anime division, whatever they're going to call it, that would be really like a positive movement forward because in terms of voice actors, a lot of them work, directly with the streaming services like Crunchyroll or High Dive when doing the dubbed versions of an anime. And as many people know too, a lot of anime don't get a dubbed version right away. Like even popular ones, like Bocchi the Rock still doesn't have a dubbed anime. Like
yeah.
I
It's
think
very sparse that they get them quickly, let alone same season.
yeah, like I mean, you have like the surefire ones, like the top tier ones. I think Jujutsu Kaisen, like My Hero Academia, Attack on Titan, like all those get them pretty quickly. Like I think after
Maybe like 3 or 4 episodes into the
yeah,
season, you'll start getting them. The
yep,
only one that, like, off the top of my head, this is so stupid and random. The only one I can think of off the top of my head that had day and date subs and dubs was Eminence in Shadow. That one had day and date on High Dive subs and
really,
dubs. Yeah, I was shocked
huh?
by that because like I was like, well, I guess this will be my new weekly show that I watch during work, dubbed. And the
That's
dub
interesting.
for all intents and purposes, that dub ain't too bad.
They
Like it
I
really isn't. I thought it was actually very good, but the show itself is fine. It's good. It's a lovely turn your brain off, have some fun.
And then there are anime as well that where the season ends and then they'll get the announcement of like, oh, the dub's coming out in like a week. So
Yeah.
it's very sporadic, it's very inconsistent, and I think I'm not alone in saying this, that it would be nice to see like a larger presence. You can tell I'm getting
Precious.
tired. A larger presence domestically that could allow for better production quality, better efficiency when it comes to producing, episodes, whether it be just the dubbing or the actual like animation and distribution. That would be a really, really positive movement forward. I think not only to grow the market, but to also expand the opportunities to start doing more for the Western audiences, right? Like
Yeah.
it's well established at this point that anime is massive, in a large part of Europe, in the United States, in Latin America, and at no point will we ever argue or that we can rival Japan in terms of like the
Consumption.
demand or and production or anything that has to do with like anime. Obviously, that's like the origination and the home for it. But given the large audience, given the large market, we can certainly do better here to strengthen it and grow it as well. You know, not even just within the United States, but outside of. And I think that Warner Brothers being a massive entity domestically, taking on this big push to say, hey, nope, we're getting into anime 10 a year. That is our goal moving forward. It's like, all right, let's see it. Let's see how you do. And from there, what are you going to do next? What's your next big push? It can't stop at 10. Are you going to start, like, is it going to be more? Are you going to open up more, production studios? Are you going to start doing more domestically? Like, what are your next objectives? That's my hope down the line.
Yeah. And all of this is say it's all speculation on our side, and
Yeah.
only time will tell. We're not the experts. We're not professionals. We don't have the inside scoop. This is all just like what we want out of it and what we think they should do and what we hope they do, because we've seen so many stumbles and tumbles and just not even reach the finish line of giving up before the getting gets good.
Yeah.
So it's only a matter of time before we actually figure out what the master plan is here, and we can only hope that it's somewhat decent.
Yeah.
Because God knows that Disney's fucked it up as bad as you can fuck anything up.
And we hope you thought this podcast episode was just about as decent as every other episode we've produced so far. At least you know it's better than Disney Plus.
Yeah. It wasn't as fucked up as Disney.
Yeah, exactly. We thank you so much for listening each and every week, watching the episodes as well online. If you want to keep following up with us, please go and follow us at our socials. You can find them on Twitter at our link tree. You can also reach out to us on Discord as well. We also go old school. Send us an email at BakaCoPodcast@gmail.com. We're always looking for more content to produce for you all, whether it be topics that you're interested in or just us going old school, reviewing some anime as well. Like I said, I could talk about JoJo's for hours. You see all this JoJo stuff behind me if you're watching the video? Yeah, I have an addiction. So if you want to hear from us,
you have something.
yeah, it's something, and it's an attraction to big muscular men. And on that note, thank you all for joining. We will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.